This bonus episode features an interview with our 2021 Writer of the Year, Mally Corrigan.
I'm now joined with writer, producer, actor, all the things extraordinaire, Mally Corrigan, who submitted The Alpines to us in February of 2021. The Alpines went on to win Best Narrative Feature for us that month at IndieEye Film Awards. It also got a bunch of awards in February, including Best Director for your buddy Dante Albane. Mally, how are you doing?
I am good. Thank you for asking, Matt.
So it's been a big year for the Alpines. It's obviously a huge project. Anytime someone takes on an independent feature film, I think people don't quite understand how much work that is from beginning to end. And it's so much more involved than a short film. What inspired you to write The Alpines and move forward to make it a feature film?
Well, I took an interest in the 7 Deadly Sins, and I just started to begin thinking about, how interesting it would be if they were manifested into a human form. And I was really curious because I did a project I majored in theater in college, and I took a stage makeup class, and we did a 7 Deadly Sins, like biblical project. And I remember it was very interesting to me on who chose which scene or which sin to portray. And I thought to myself, it's very interesting how we as humans feel connected to a specific sin, or where, we gravitate towards one. So I thought that was very interesting. And I just kind of wanted to play around with the idea of creating a story based around that. And I've always been an actor first. So I wanted to start writing characters and story that I really wanted to see and to play myself. I have played a love interest countless amounts of times, and I kind of wanted to rewrite the script a little bit and create interesting females and dynamic men and a true ensemble. And with that, the Alpines was born.
Well, you just brought up ensemble, and Alpines won our Best Ensemble Cast in February. It's quite a challenge to put 7 very distinct characters together like that. What was your biggest challenge when you were casting for the film?
The biggest challenge, honestly, was actually finding my Roger. It was very, very difficult. I had worked previously with Katrina and Nigel and Jesse, who respectively played Rowan, James, and Andy. And then we kind of ventured out and we did audition, and we, as soon as we found Aaron, we knew we had our Zach, and Mike was just incredible as Gil. And I want to say actually that part was super easy. Like, they came in, they walked in, they read, and, it was like, it was a puzzle piece. It was perfect. But
nice.
Finding our Roger was definitely difficult. And it was like the 7th piece of that. It was like finishing the puzzle. And we auditioned, I believe, like 16 or 17 men, which was fun.
Wow.
And especially for such a no budget, like 2 people crew between myself, Dante, and our boom operator at the time. So so we would just, night and day, we'd audition everyone, and it wasn't quite clicking. Like, it wasn't clicking. And then finally, I found Dan via the beautiful interweb, and reached out to him, asked him to audition. And it's funny, his initial audition, he actually he didn't have a reader, so he performed it as a long monologue. So don't let that, all you actors out there listening, don't let not having a reader deter you, because even though he performed it as a monologue, he still really stuck out to us. And we did a callback, and we did like a chemistry read with myself, because he's a majority my scene partner. And the rest is history. It felt like, it was like the final piece of the puzzle kind of all coming together to really create such an ensemble. And Matt, fun fact, 6 out of 7 of the actors from the Alpines have all won a either best actor, best actress, or best supporting. So pretty wild to me.
That is super impressive.
I know.
And it's important, I think, to identify this piece of the puzzle in filmmaking. Casting is directing. And I think a lot of us, especially with an indie budget or no budget, we reach out to our friends or people we know, or our friends reach out to us and go, can you put me in your film? And that could be such a mistake down the road because not everybody's an actor. It may sound easy and look easy, but it's not. And if you're not quite prepared to, number one, take on a feature film, that is a lot of shooting. But if you're not prepared to really become a character, you're going to do a disservice to the film. And if this is your friend's film, you're really going to do a disservice to your friend because you have to fit a specific role for this film that's, if it's in the script, is likely very critical. So casting is directing, and that is a huge reason why the Alpines is such a success, is you and Dante identifying people who fit this vision that you had. And I think you did an amazing job. Now, in the production, I know you're a producer for the film. You obviously wrote the film. You're in the film. You're doing makeup. Talk about wearing all these hats with the ticking clock and small space to work in. How did that go?
Horrendous, but somehow it worked. I say horrendous in the best way possible because it's just it's like chaotic good. I don't think I set out to wear as many hats as I did, but ultimately and inevitably, when you're making a feature film on a shoestring budget, and no budget, honestly, it just sort of kind of all falls into place, and it ends up kind of falling into your lap. So I started out as I wrote it and started producing it alongside Dante, and then it came to casting and then like wearing that hat, getting the table reads together, booking the location, speaking with the location, trying to build a rapport. And then I remember, and I also, so I took a stage makeup class. So then I said to myself, well, okay, like, all right, I guess I could do like the visual effects makeup. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, cool. And so I'm practicing. My beloved, my best friend, my boyfriend, he's just like 2 days before I'm driving up to go to set, I'm practicing the exact makeup on his arm for like 2-3 hours.
What a champ.
While he just sits and he watches YouTube videos. Oh yeah. Be nothing without him, but nowhere without him. But yeah, like I'm just practicing on him, and I'm just like, okay, like we're gonna work at this, and we're gonna get it until I can make it look great. And I'm also a perfectionist, so that doesn't help.
Right.
But then, I'm driving up to set. It's about an 8-hour drive. I'm driving with actors and Aaron and Jesse, and they're practicing lines. And I say to myself, oh my God, like I didn't memorize the script.
Oh.
Like I didn't memorize my lines.
Someone's not off book.
Oh crap, I'm an actor in this too. I'm like, oh shoot, like, oh goodness, okay. So then we get up to set, and basically, there was no sleeping on set for me. It was getting everyone in order, ready to shoot, making sure, Dante and our boom operator were good to go, making sure the actors had if they needed appropriate makeup, because there's some visual effects makeup. As I'm doing makeup, I'm running lines, and then, if I would try to get a lunch break and try to eat like a Pop-Tart if I could throw one in my mouth real quick.
The big budget Pop-Tart.
Yeah, for real. Well, it's funny too, though. As I went to go take a bite of this famous strawberry frosted Pop-Tart,
of course,
I'd finished filming my scenes, and then all of a sudden Dante pops his head in from outside, and he's like, "Hey, Mally, like I need you to be the Uber driver that drops Gil off." And I was just like, can't like someone else do it? And he's like, no, Miss Producer, come on. I'm like, okay, here I go. So when Gil gets dropped off in the beginning of the movie, I am the one driving the car.
Oh.
And I think that moment where my brain went, yeah, you're doing too much.
Now, you worked with Dante before briefly, but this was really the first project you guys collaborated on, and this is really the beginning of a friendship. What was it like at first discussing the project with him and then getting into the actual filming? What was that experience like?
I can now say this very confidently. Back then, if you had asked me, I would have said, like, we're solar opposites, and it caused a lot of butting heads privately between me and him when it came to like scripts or scene directions and such like that. But now, as I've learned and grow, and I work more alongside Dante, I realize that the two of us balance each other out really well, because where he has a lot of strengths, I kind of have strengths in other ways. The script had a lot more comedy in the beginning. And he's much more of the darker horror thriller expert. And so, his guidance and his suggestions really did help kind of bring on the creepiness and the terror of the secrets and the
right
and the suspense and the tension. Whereas, like, I think that I really work well with characters individually, and shaping and molding characters to be three-dimensional human beings. And so, I can tell you right now, on set, we were button heads like crazy because we oftentimes had conflicting opinions. But I think ultimately, being so opposite, it actually really helped us ground each other. And I think that we do make a pretty good team, because I think the final result of the Alpines, is it a perfect movie? No, but I do think for two people that have nothing and are starting from nothing, I think we did an okay job.
Oh, absolutely. And that really is the valuable takeaway for you guys personally, is you forged this relationship in a powder keg. And if you could come out of that and still be friends, that means there's something special there. And it's really great when we're in something like that and we can butt heads and have different opinions, but find our way through and realize that the opinions are valid and they just help challenge what's true for the film. So it's just wonderful that you guys got through that and were able to craft it in such a way and carve this film and still be friends today.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke and say barely, but he won't appreciate that. So.
well, you got through production of the Alpines, and you get through post-production, which takes a while. Notice to everybody who's listening, indie films are hard to make, and sometimes they take longer than other people may expect. Other people who are not in the editing room and dealing with complications that come up in post-production. But you get through that. Having the film completed, is that a weight lifted off of you? How do you feel at that point?
Honestly, yes. When we've had our final cut of the film, I don't even feel like that was a weight lifted from my shoulders. I think when we finally submitted it, and even when we had people, watch and kind of give us, audience feedback, that didn't even feel like a weight. Like when the very first outside person watched it, I think when we finally hit that submit button on the festivals, it was like, well, it is now out to the universe. We went to festivals in California, New York, some overseas and like Europe. And at that point it was like, well, like we did it. People are going to watch it. They'll either like it, love it, hate it, and that's it. And it's definitely been kind of a therapeutic thing, honestly, because you hold all of this, I want to use the word concern, because
Sure.
it's your baby,
Right.
in a sense. And, it's like sending your toddler off to the first day of school. You're like, I hope they remember their manners. I hope they remember to do this. I hope they remember to do that. Like, you've given all that you can to this thing, and you just hope that it can go off into the world and thrive. So it was very much a fly baby bird fly moment for us. You're just kind of like, well, what happens, whatever happens, happens. And it was pretty crazy, honestly, the response that we got. I never in a million years thought that we would be where we are now, which is mostly all thanks to you, by the way.
Oh, well, wherever you are now, you'd have been there anyways, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Mally, after the success of the Alpines, it's now streaming on several platforms. How did that come about?
So we applied to several film festivals, and there was one in particular called IndieEye.
I've heard of that one.
It's a good one. I do recommend it. 10 out of 10. One thing that really drew us to submitting to this festival was that there was a podcast offered towards the end of each month. And we applied, and, to our excitement, we won a few awards. And there was a podcast done, talking about the Alpines in great length. And that podcast was physically what caught the eye of a producer's rep. He actually also was a participant in the festival as well. And he was listening in, and he was really impressed by what the podcast had to say about us. And so he reached out and he asked to watch the film and, offered to work with us for distribution, which was so incredible. And just, it was very surreal, in all honesty. It was surreal. One, honestly, the podcast, it made me cry.
Oh.
It did, because you have bouts of imposter syndrome, and you think, and you work till 3 a.m. on these projects, and you put everything you've got into it. And even though you shouldn't look to others for approval, when someone does recognize your hard work and they appreciate it, we're human. It's an amazing feeling.
Of course.
And it's really incredible. And so, to have someone speak so highly of the film, to which then someone is interested in, helping us continue the journey towards distribution, was just absolutely, it was a completely surreal experience. So we worked with our producer's rep, and, he physically, so the way distribution works is they kind of shop it around to distributors and, put a little kind of presentation packet together. So I had a press kit ready, and, we submitted the film, and Gravitas Ventures actually really responded to the film. And, so we worked towards getting it into distribution with them, and it's now available on several platforms. I think, I'm not going to get them all, but it's iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Amazon Prime now, and that's domestically.
That's so cool.
And we're currently working towards an international distribution.
Having gone through all this, what has been the biggest lesson you've learned from making the Alpines?
The biggest lesson that I've learned is, I think it's both inspirational and very realistic at the same time. One, I learned to just do it. So if you want to make a movie and you have the means and you're capable of doing it, then do it. Because the worst that can happen is that, people see it and they may or may not like it, but you do it, you get it done, and you get it under your belt, and it makes you that much more capable in people's eyes. The more realistic thing that I've learned is that even though you work night and day, years on a project, be ready with the next one.
Right.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, okay, the Alpines, but what's next? Which I think in the very beginning is a very daunting thing to hear. I do write, so I do have other scripts available. But again, you focus so long and so hard on one thing that it becomes your world.
Right.
Literally. You live it, you eat it, you breathe it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so eye-opening to then just people watching it and then saying, well, what's next? And I think that's honestly one of the biggest takeaways I have from it is that, yes, I did the Alpines. It's done. It's out there. People are watching it. They like it. They love it. They hate it. And now what? That's ultimately what I've learned is that you just got to keep going. And I think that's what I'm most excited for too. I've learned a lot from making the Alpines. I've learned what not to do, what to do, how to run things differently, how to go about things differently, maybe not take on so many things. And I'm just going to use it to make the next one bigger and better.
Well, that's great perspective. And my next question is kind of in the same realm. But what would your advice be for other first-time filmmakers?
I think my advice to young filmmakers is that even though you may doubt yourself, even though you may doubt, and you may have doubt along the way, that don't let others doubt you. I had never made a feature before. I actually had only written a few scripts and they went on stage. And I made this feature. I wrote it and I presented it. And I went into it like, yeah, this is it. Let's do it. And then, I found someone, a director, who was on board. And even when you keep doubting yourself, present it to the actors. Yeah, we're going to make this. We're going to do it. We're going to film 118 pages in 11 days. It's possible. We can do it. And even if you do doubt yourself, just to continue to hold on to that hope and determination to do it. Because once you do, then no one can take that away from you.
That's very good advice. That's excellent. What is next for Mally Corrigan?
Well, currently, I actually am working on, so I have a finished psychological thriller that I think I want to be my next project. But eventually, I have a couple pilot scripts and they're a comedy.
Huh.
And which I know is a little bit weird if you've seen the Alpines.
That's fun.
About comedy. But yeah, I love comedy and psychological thrillers for two different reasons. I like psychological thrillers to completely question your morals and your logic, and I like to leave you wondering who you're rooting for in the end, or kind of questioning what you've just watched.
Yeah, I like it when those lines are blurred.
Yeah, I definitely, and that was my biggest thing with the 7 Deadly Sins, and that was kind of the coolest, the biggest motivator for me with writing it was like, I self-identify with blank the most. Well, who do you self-identify with most, and what does that say about you as a human being?
Right.
My next psychological thriller is solely based off the question, which is greater, nature versus nurture? Which one shapes, which one molds you? Whereas comedies, I actually prefer that they speak to someone and they feel relatable and you can see yourself in these human beings and they're totally human, they're flawed, and you've lived these moments. And so it's kind of like a contradiction, but that is what is currently on my radar. I want to get another psychological thriller under my belt, make another feature, and then kind of venture into the television world and start creating my series.
Well, that is very cool. I'm excited to see anything you're involved in going forward. And I want to tell you, I've got to tell you now, that the experience we had through your experience with the Alpines was very impactful for IndieEye Film Awards. And then afterwards, when we found out it was going to have some distribution, we were so encouraged that this connection was made because of our silly podcast. And I couldn't be happier for you and everyone involved with the Alpines to tell you that the Alpines is our narrative feature of the year for 2021.
Oh,
but
you.
I'm not finished, because okay. I also need to tell you that Mally Corrigan is our writer of the year for 2021.
What?
The Alpines stands out still above the rest when it comes to the writing. The characters are all individually unique, and writers out there, make sure that you're paying attention to that with your characters. The way everything is weaved, and I will, I'm not going to say anything much about how the Alpines wraps up in the third act, but there was a moment in the third act that may or may not involve you that I thought, wow, this really turned right here, and that's awesome. And, I don't want to say a whole lot about that. You probably know what I'm talking about, but it just really won me over, and we're so impressed with the Alpines. It's definitely deserving of its February awards and these awards. And just to let you know, because you probably haven't talked to him about this, but we gave Dante Director of the Year.
Well, we're going to have to celebrate now. We're going to have to come to you. And
that's what I was hoping for.
North. Go up north.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on with me and speaking to our audience about your experience and really letting people see that it's a challenge, and we're all going to face challenges, but at the end of that tunnel could be something really great. And as long as you believe in your project and see that through, you're making that opportunity for yourself. So congratulations to you and your team. I'm so glad you had a great 21, and I look forward to seeing more from you in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for one, thank you for viewing the Alpines back in February. I think from February on, what has been so great is, yes, I feel like we've made connections with, both you and also our producers rep, but at the same time, I do feel like we've gained a friend as well along the way as a filmmaker as well. Not only do we talk about all the highs, but we also talk about the lows.
Right.
And I think that is one of the most important things about this industry is finding your people, connecting with them, and sticking together through the highs and lows. And although we have not worked together yet, yes, I'm gunning for the next project.
Awesome.
But although we have not worked together yet, I do feel like we've Dante and I have been lucky to make the connection with you and to create a friendship that I hope lasts for a long time.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I feel the same way. And this is something so much more than I ever thought I would ever get out of IndieEye. I thought it'd be just a place for me to rant about indie films, but I hadn't expected to make these kinds of connections through this, and I'm so grateful that people are listening and submitting and participating, and that we can kind of create a bit of a community here and push indie film forward. So thanks again for being on, and good luck to anybody else who submits in a month where Dante or Mally submits something. All right.
No, don't discourage them. IndieEye is a great. There's a lot of festivals out there, especially on Film Freeway, but IndieEye is one of the best.
You are too kind.
So submit now, right now. What are you doing now?
Find more information about our guest in the description box of this episode.
If you'd like your project discussed on the podcast, go to IndieEyeFilmAwards.com and submit to our open monthly competition. Find us on Instagram and YouTube, IndieEye Film Awards.
Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of the IndieEye Film Awards podcast.